Oh, yes. Lots of Alexes here.
Nobody expected a simple question from a child to become one of the most memorable Alex Eala moments of the year. It didn't happen during a match. It wasn't a championship point. There was no dramatic comeback, no trophy celebration, and no packed stadium erupting with applause. Instead, it happened in a quiet room in Berlin. A young girl held a microphone that looked almost too large for her hands. Across from her sat one of the fastest rising stars in women's tennis, a 21-year-old player carrying the hopes of an entire nation every time she steps onto a court. Her name was Alex Eala, and then came the question, a question so simple that most people would have forgotten it within seconds. Why do you love tennis? At first glance, it sounds like the kind of question children ask every day. But in that moment, it became something much bigger. Because to understand why that question mattered, you first have to understand everything Alex Eala had experienced in the days leading up to it. Just over a week earlier, she was standing on a winner's podium in Birmingham. She had battled through a difficult tournament, overcome tough opponents, and lifted the second WTA 125 trophy of her career. It was another major milestone in what has already been a remarkable season. For many athletes, winning a title creates momentum. It creates confidence. It creates the feeling that everything is moving in the right direction. But tennis has a way of changing the story overnight. Only a few days after celebrating that trophy, Eala walked onto the grass courts of Queen's Club with hopes of carrying her form into another important tournament. Instead, she suffered a difficult defeat. The American teenager Iva Jovic defeated her in straight sets. It wasn't the result Eala wanted. Even more frustrating, it wasn't the first time Jovic had beaten her. In professional sports, victories often receive the headlines. But losses are what athletes carry with them. They replay mistakes in their minds. They wonder what could have gone differently. They question whether they prepared enough. And sometimes they carry those thoughts for days. So when Alex Eala arrived in Berlin, she wasn't arriving after a perfect stretch of tennis. She was arriving after experiencing both extremes. The joy of lifting a trophy and the disappointment of a painful loss. Most athletes would have been focused entirely on preparing for their next match. After all, Berlin wasn't just another tournament. This was a WTA 500 event, one of the strongest fields of the season. Some of the biggest names in women's tennis were in attendance. The draw was packed with elite competition. Every match mattered. Every opportunity mattered. Every ranking point mattered. Yet before any of those battles could begin, Alex Eala found herself sitting across from a group of children during the tournament's kids' press conference. It's a tradition that has become popular at several tournaments around the world. Young fans are given the opportunity to ask professional players questions that adult journalists usually don't ask, and that's what makes it special. Children don't care about statistics. They don't care about rankings. They don't care about media narratives. They ask what genuinely interests them. And sometimes those questions reveal more than any professional interview ever could. The little girl who raised the microphone that day happened to share the same first name as the player she was interviewing. Alex. Another Alex. The coincidence was too perfect to ignore. The WTA itself highlighted the moment with a caption that read, "From one Alex to another." It was a small detail, but it made the interaction feel even more personal, because suddenly it wasn't just a tennis player answering a question. It was one Alex talking to another, one generation speaking to the next. And when the young fan asked why she loved tennis, Alex Eala didn't respond with a rehearsed answer. She didn't talk about rankings. She didn't talk about trophies. She didn't talk about prize money. Instead, she said something simple. "I love tennis because it makes me feel empowered. It makes me feel confident. It makes me feel strong." That answer immediately stood out. Not because it was dramatic, but because it felt genuine. In an era where athletes are often trained to avoid saying the wrong thing, Eala's answer felt refreshingly human. There was no complicated explanation, No carefully crafted media statement, just honesty. And perhaps that's why the clip spread so quickly across social media. Fans weren't watching a tennis player perform for a camera. They were watching a person share something real. What made the moment even more powerful was the timing. Remember, this wasn't happening during a winning streak. This wasn't happening immediately after a major triumph. This was happening only days after a difficult defeat. And yet there was no bitterness in her voice. No frustration, no visible signs of someone dwelling on disappointment. Instead, there was warmth, there was patience, there was kindness. For a young athlete competing at the highest level, that isn't always easy. Professional sports can be ruthless. Athletes are constantly evaluated, constantly compared, constantly judged. Every result becomes a topic of discussion. Every loss becomes a headline. Every mistake becomes a talking point. Under those circumstances, maintaining perspective can be incredibly difficult. Yet Alex Eala appeared completely present in that moment, listening carefully, answering sincerely, giving the young fans her full attention. And perhaps that tells us something important about who she is becoming as both a player and a person. Because while rankings measure performance, they don't measure character. Statistics can tell us how many matches someone has won. They cannot tell us how someone treats people. Scoreboards can show success. They cannot reveal humility. Moments like the Berlin Kids press conference provide that missing piece. They show the human side that fans rarely get to see. For many Filipino supporters, that human side is one of the reasons they connect with Alex Eala so strongly. They have watched her grow from a promising junior into one of the most exciting young players in women's tennis. They have watched her navigate victories, setbacks, expectations, and pressure. And through all of it, she has remained remarkably grounded. That quality was visible in Birmingham when she lifted her trophy. During her victory speech, she didn't speak like someone who believed she had already arrived. Instead, she spoke like someone who understood that the journey was still continuing. She talked about staying motivated, about continuing to work, about appreciating every step of the process. The same humility that appeared on the podium appeared again in Berlin. The setting was different, the audience was different, the questions were different, but the person was the same. And that consistency may be one of her greatest strengths, because professional tennis isn't just about talent, it's about handling pressure. It's about responding to setbacks. It's about remaining focused when expectations continue to grow. Eala's 2026 season has already provided evidence of that growth. She has climbed the rankings. She has earned significant victories. She has collected valuable experience against elite opponents. And she has continued building a reputation as one of the sport's most promising young stars. That reputation is no longer limited to the Philippines. Tournament organizers want her in their events. Fans want to watch her compete. Media outlets want to tell her story. The invitation to Berlin itself reflected that reality. She wasn't simply another player entering a draw. She had become someone people wanted to see, someone people wanted to hear from, someone capable of attracting attention both on and off the court. That is not something that happens by accident. It is earned through performance, through professionalism, through consistency, and through authenticity. The Berlin Kids press conference may seem like a small moment compared to a major final or a championship victory. But sometimes small moments reveal the most. Anyone can smile after winning. Anyone can celebrate after lifting a trophy. The more revealing moments often come in between. They come after setbacks. They come during uncertainty. They come when cameras unexpectedly capture who a person really is. That is why this story resonated with so many people. It wasn't really about the question, and it wasn't really about the answer. It was about what the interaction revealed. A young player carrying enormous expectations, a competitor coming off both success and disappointment. A rising star, preparing for one of the toughest tournaments of her season. And despite all of that, she still took the time to answer a child's question with sincerity and care. Years from now, fans may not remember every ranking point Alex Eala earned in 2026. They may not remember every scoreline. They may not remember every draw. But moments like this have a way of lasting, because they remind us that behind every athlete is a person, behind every ranking is a story, and behind every victory or defeat is someone still trying to inspire the next generation. Perhaps that is why the image remains so powerful. A young girl holding a microphone almost too large for her hand. A rising tennis star listening carefully. Two people sharing the same first name. One asking a simple question, the other giving an honest answer. From one Alex to another, a small moment in Berlin. But sometimes the smallest moments tell us the most important things.